Chosen one. The night feels different tonight. The wind carries a kind of silence that speaks louder than thunder, the kind that makes your heart beat a little faster without knowing why. You didn't just stumble upon this moment. You were summoned. Heaven has been waiting for you to be still enough to listen. You've walked through long corridors of delay, wondering why every prayer seemed to echo back unanswered. But listen closely. Waiting is not wasting. It is the secret workshop of God. What you thought was stillness was actually sacred construction. You were being rebuilt from the inside out. There once was a chosen one named Aram. For years he labored in the shadows, misunderstood and overlooked. While others around him were celebrated, he prayed in silence, cried in private, and yet kept his faith unshaken. Until one quiet evening, the very mountain he climbed daily to pray burst into firelight, not to destroy him, but to reveal him. The same mountain that tested him became the altar that crowned him. You too are standing before your mountain, and tonight, the ground beneath you is shifting. You feel it in your spirit, that trembling between the end of something and the beginning of something else. That's not fear. That's the sound of transformation approaching, as was spoken in the ancient words of the book of Hosea, chapter 6, verse 3. Let us acknowledge the Lord. Let us press on to know him. As surely as the sun rises, he will appear. He will come to us. Rain, that's what this night represents. After the drought of disappointment, heaven is sending rain. You can almost smell it, that fragrance of renewal that comes before the first drop touches the earth. Everything dry in your spirit is about to bloom again. You have waited, not in vain, but in purpose. Every unanswered prayer became a seed buried deep beneath the soil of time. Tonight, those seeds are breaking open. What you planted in tears is about to rise in joy. Think of the stars. They burn brightest in the darkest hours, not because the light changes, but because the backdrop of night gives them contrast. That's what your pain has done, given your light definition. Without the dark, you wouldn't see how bright you truly are. The heavens have been in motion for you. Angels assigned to your destiny have been rearranging circumstances, whispering to hearts, opening invisible pathways. What you thought was random delay was divine choreography. And now, heaven is calling for your response. You don't need to prove anything. Just open your heart. Because the transformation isn't coming from outside, it's rising from within you. Let me tell you what's really happening. The season of hiddenness is ending. The cloak that covered you is lifting. You're being seen for who you truly are, not for what people said, but for what God has always known. This moment is sacred. Don't rush it. Breathe. Feel the shift in the air. There's a reason the night feels charged. You are being rewritten by light itself. Aram's story didn't end in silence. It began there. When he finally stopped trying to make something happen and simply listened, that's when heaven spoke. The same is true for you. Stop striving. Just be still. The next instruction will find you when your heart is quiet enough to hear, you've carried enough. You've fought long enough. The weight you feel isn't meant to crush you. It's the final pressure before release. Like the diamond under the mountain, you've been formed by fire and time. Now, chosen one, lift your head. The dawn has already started to bleed across the horizon of your soul. Tonight is not the end, it's the threshold. You're stepping into something you prayed for when you had no strength left to hope. If this message resonates deeply, let your heart answer. Share it forward to someone who needs light in their own midnight. Leave a comment, not out of routine, but as an act of faith, a way of saying, I'm awake, I'm listening. And if you haven't yet, subscribe so you can walk this journey with others who carry the same flame. Because tonight, heaven didn't just speak it, called you by name. And when heaven calls, everything changes. Comment 777, and as you type that number, feel its echo in your spirit. 777, the mark of completion, divine order, and perfect timing. Heaven sees it. Heaven records it. This is your midnight. Yes, the moment everything begins to align. You wake before sunrise. The air still heavy with the fragrance of rain. The night has ended. But something inside you hasn't settled yet. It feels as if a new current flows beneath your ribs, quiet, steady, alive. You realize that what began last night was not a feeling, it was a birthing. The fire of being chosen doesn't always arrive in triumph. Often, it begins in trembling. The same light that reveals your purpose also exposes what must be healed. You start to see patterns in your past moments where rejection redirected you, where delay preserved you, where pain taught you language for empathy. You begin to understand that nothing was wasted. There was another chosen one once. Her name was Sarah. She lived through seasons of scarcity, working fields that refused to bloom. People mocked her faith, whispering that she had misheard God. Yet one evening, as the sun sank into the horizon, she noticed something small, a single stalk of wheat pushing through the hardened earth. It wasn't much, but it was enough to tell her that heaven never forgot. A few days later, the entire field shimmered gold. You are standing in the same principle. The field may still look empty, but something beneath the surface is moving. The ground you thought was barren is beginning to pulse with life. It's not visible yet, but growth rarely announces itself loudly. The spirit often moves like breath, unseen but unmistakable. You don't see the wind, but you see the branches bow. You don't see God's hand, but you feel your heart begin to steady. The book of Proverbs reminds us with ancient wisdom. Chapter 4, Verse 18. The path of the righteous is like the morning sun, shining ever brighter till the full light of day. Those words whisper that your dawn is progressive, not instant, but certain. You notice your thoughts shifting. The heaviness that once clung to your chest loosens. You no longer see your scars as proof of loss, but as evidence of endurance. They are the handwriting of survival. Every mark tells the world, I made it through what tried to break me. Your reflection in the mirror feels unfamiliar, not because your face changed, but because your eyes carry awareness now. There is purpose behind the gaze. You understand that being chosen isn't about superiority, it's about stewardship. The light you carry was never meant to be locked away. It's a torch meant to guide others through the fog you once wandered. In this quiet morning, the world feels paused. You sense the whisper of heaven again. Softer now, but closer. Keep walking. That's all it says. Yet, it's enough. You realize you don't need the entire roadmap. You just need the next step illuminated. The transformation that began last night continues quietly, like roots expanding unseen beneath the earth. Patience becomes your weapon now. Silence, your teacher. Gratitude, your song. Sarah used to say that faith grows best in ordinary days. She found holiness in washing her hands, in gathering grain, in greeting strangers with kindness. Her faith was not built in moments of miracles, but in the mundane rhythm of obedience. You begin to understand this truth. The extraordinary hides inside the ordinary. A memory flashes a time when you thought you had failed beyond repair. But looking back, you see that what collapsed wasn't your destiny, it was your comfort. What ended was never meant to last, because what was coming required room to unfold. You whisper a small prayer, not of asking, but of acknowledgement. You thank heaven for the lessons disguised as delays. You thank heaven for every closed door that rerouted you to something sacred. The morning light now spills across your hands. The first rays warm your skin, and for a moment, you feel as though heaven is applauding your endurance. You survived the night. That's no small thing. You have become stronger in the unseen places, the ones no one claps for. But God notices. Chosen one. This is what it means to be marked by fire and grace. You walk between what was and what will be. The world may not yet see it, but something in the atmosphere has already shifted in your favor. You're not chasing signs anymore. You've become one. And as you breathe in this new day, a quiet certainty anchors you that the same God who spoke to the prophets, who lifted the weary, who parted seas and hearts alike, is still writing through you. Your story isn't finished. It's just beginning to shine. The day unfolds slowly, like a scroll being opened by unseen hands. Everything feels sharper, the sounds, the light, even the stillness. You sense that something has shifted not only around you, but within you. You're beginning to walk differently, not because the path has changed, but because your awareness has. Transformation rarely announces itself with thunder. Often, it comes disguised as ordinary choices, the decision to forgive again, to rise instead of retreat, to believe even when logic trembles. These small moments are sacred revolutions. They are the quiet revolts of faith against fear. There was a chosen one named Mara, a woman who used to hide her strength because the world told her she was too much, too intense, too emotional, too hopeful. But one morning, while tending to a vineyard, she heard an inner voice whisper, "You were never meant to shrink to fit comfort." That day, she decided to stop apologizing for her light. Seasons later, the vineyard that once barely lived became the most fruitful in the valley. Her transformation didn't begin with applause. It began with permission, her own. You've reached that same threshold. Heaven isn't waiting to hand you courage. It's waiting for you to claim it. The promise you carry will not bloom in safety. It grows in surrender. Every chosen one learns this truth. Obedience always comes before overflow. Scripture says in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." Oh, those words aren't poetic comfort, they are divine law. Even what hurt you will eventually serve you. Every broken piece becomes material for redemption. Every delay, a doorway. Every loss, a seed. You start to remember how many times you almost gave up. The nights you said, "I can't do this anymore." Yet here you are breathing, learning, expanding. You are the living evidence that grace still interrupts despair. There's a strange calm around you now. The noise of self-doubt begins to fade. The more you accept that you're chosen, the less you need validation. You realize you don't need to prove your worth. Your existence is already the proof. You look at the world differently. Even the smallest things seem charged with purpose. The laughter of a child, the hum of rain against glass, the warmth of morning light. You begin to see heaven's fingerprints in everything. Still, this transformation asks something of you. It calls for a response, not in words alone, but in presence. You must decide to show up fully, to live as though your life is already an answered prayer. Take a deep breath. You are no longer who you were. The old hesitations cannot follow you into this season. The fears that once held you hostage no longer have permission to speak. You are stepping into alignment, a life that no longer apologizes for the fire God placed within you. And now, as this truth sinks in, I want you to pause. Let your spirit acknowledge this moment. This is the instant your destiny begins to unfold in real time. If your heart is stirring, respond, not to me, but to heaven itself. Comment, I rise. When you write it, you're declaring resurrection, not just survival. But renewal. You're telling heaven, I'm done shrinking. I'm ready to stand. Every time you say those two words, the old season loses its grip a little more. The ground beneath your feet begins to strengthen. Remember, transformation isn't a single spark, it's a series of awakenings. And tonight, one more door inside you has opened. Keep walking through. Heaven is still moving. And so are you. Each awakening reveals a new layer of strength you didn't know existed. Like a sculptor chiseling stone, God removes what doesn't belong: fear, doubt, guilt, until what remains is pure essence. Divine design. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before life made you forget. Every yes you whisper to heaven rewrites your atmosphere. When you choose peace instead of anger, patience instead of panic, faith instead of control, the unseen shifts. You are aligning your frequency with heaven's rhythm, and heaven always responds to harmony. Don't underestimate the power of small obedience. It's the quiet, consistent steps that shape the giants of faith. Mara didn't change her destiny overnight. She tended her vineyard day after day until heaven met her diligence with abundance. The same principle moves for you now. So, as this section closes, let these words root in your heart. Transformation is not about haste, it's about holy endurance. You are not waiting for favor to find you. Favor already knows your name. You move through the day with a strange awareness, as if every sound, every shadow, carries a hidden message. The wind brushes against your face, and for a moment, you sense it. The world is listening too. Heaven has opened a window over you, and even the smallest details seem to participate in your awakening. Transformation changes how you see everything. What once looked like obstacles now appear as lessons in disguise. The pain that used to feel like punishment becomes evidence of your training. Every difficulty has refined your discernment, sharpened your vision, and carved humility into your heart. The weight that once broke you is now the muscle that sustains you. There was once a chosen one named Ezra. He was known not for his strength, but for his stillness. When storms came, he did not run, he listened. People called him passive, yet in silence, he was learning the language of heaven. One night, as lightning split the sky, he heard the words that would change him forever. The storm is not your enemy, it's your classroom. From that day, Ezra began to see differently. The rain no longer frightened him. He learned to walk in storms others fled from. And wherever he went, peace followed. You are learning what Ezra learned, that stillness is not weakness. In a world addicted to noise, silence becomes your superpower. It's in quiet moments that heaven's voice becomes clear. The whisper of the Spirit rarely competes with chaos. It waits for your attention. You remember now how often you tried to rush through pain, to skip chapters that felt too heavy. But divine timing cannot be forced. You see, even in creation, God didn't form everything in a day. There was order, rhythm, and rest. The same pattern applies to you. Formation takes time. We find in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 4, "Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." Then, that single verse is the blueprint of your journey. Patience is not punishment, it's preparation. Every waiting season was heaven's way of ensuring you were ready for what you prayed for. The more you reflect, the clearer it becomes. The transformation happening inside you is not random. It's structured, deliberate, sacred. Every heartbreak loosened your attachment to what was temporary. Every delay removed what was counterfeit. Every disappointment refined your discernment. You were being trained to recognize authenticity in people, in purpose, in truth. You begin to appreciate the slowness of this process. What once felt like stagnation now feels like still waters. You are not behind. You are being rooted. Trees that grow fast often fall fast, but those that grow deep can withstand centuries of storms. And maybe that's what God has been doing, making you unshakable. You walk outside as the evening sun dips low. The light paints everything gold, and for a moment, you stand there, still. You can feel gratitude rising. Unprovoked. You whisper softly, "Thank you for not giving up on me when I almost gave up on myself." In that whisper, something in the air responds. A peace too heavy to describe descends upon you. Quiet, but undeniable. It feels like heaven saying, "I never left." No, Ezra once wrote in his journal, "The evidence of divine presence is not always fire or thunder. Sometimes it is the calm that follows." You now understand what he meant. You no longer crave signs, you crave peace. And that peace is becoming your compass. It tells you when to move and when to wait. It teaches you that divine direction is not loud, it's subtle. Like the pull of gravity guiding the tide. You realize, too, that transformation is not an event, it's a rhythm. You're learning to dance to it, not rushing the tempo, not resisting the pauses. Each day, you surrender a little more, trust a little deeper, shine a little brighter. The night returns. The sky, once heavy with clouds, now reveals a quiet tapestry of stars. You look up and smile, understanding something simple yet profound. Everything that once felt lost was only being rearranged. Nothing in your story is wasted. Every step, even the painful ones, has led you here, standing on sacred ground, more whole than you've ever been. No applause, no noisy, no spotlight, just peace. And that is how you know heaven has done something real. The noise of striving is gone. What remains is steady, faith mature, grounded, unmovable. In this stillness, you sense it clearly. Your transformation isn't just happening to you, it's happening through you. Everywhere you go, the atmosphere bends toward light. You are becoming what you were always meant to be, a vessel of quiet strength, carrying heaven's rhythm in your heartbeat. The sun has barely risen, and yet the world feels softer today. The air carries a gentler weight, as though creation itself recognizes that something sacred has awakened in you. You move more slowly, not from exhaustion, but from reverence, aware that each moment holds meaning now. You are walking through your transformation one breath at a time. The noise that used to demand your attention now feels distant, powerless. There's a new rhythm inside you, steady, peaceful, certain. You no longer chase signs, you simply live in alignment. And heaven meets you there. You remember the story of a chosen one named Leor, a craftsman who built lamps for the temple. He never saw himself as important. While others worked under sunlight, his hands shaped metal by candlelight. One evening, his mentor asked, "Why do you work when no one can see?" Leor smiled and replied, "Because light is meant to be made in darkness." Years later, one of his lamps illuminated the holy place. When the people returned from exile, what was made quietly became the vessel that guided thousands. That's what generosity is like. Unseen light, prepared in secret. Every act of kindness, every prayer whispered for someone else, every quiet offering given with love becomes a flame in someone's night. You may never see its full reach, but heaven does. You pause for a moment and think of all the hearts that have found hope through voices like this. One souls that needed just a spark to remember they are not forgotten. Message. Each word is a lamp being shaped, and together, those lamps form a constellation of light across the world. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Hebrews, chapter 13, verse 16. Do not forget to do good and to share with others, for with such sacrifices God is pleased. Oh, these words remind you that giving is not about amount, but about alignment. It's not an obligation, it's participation, a way to keep the fire burning for someone else still walking through their night. When you choose to share, to give, or to support, it's as if you place another log on the altar's fire. You're not paying for light, you're helping it reach further. You become part of something larger, a movement of quiet hearts lifting others out of shadow. And so, if your heart ever feels stirred to keep this light flowing through a gesture, a prayer, a word, or even a donation, let it come from that sacred place inside you where love speaks louder than logic. Think of it not as giving away, but as planting forward. Each seed of generosity grows into another message, another moment of hope reaching someone who needs it most, like the lamps Leor made. Your kindness becomes part of something eternal. When you choose to like or share, you send a spark across the digital night, a ripple in the river of light. When you subscribe, you plant your name among the watchers of dawn, those who wait for heaven's next whisper. And if you ever feel moved to donate, see it not as loss, but as rain falling into the garden of words, helping new seeds of hope rise for souls you may never meet. It's a beautiful truth. Giving doesn't deplete light, it multiplies it. Just as one candle can ignite another without losing its own glow, your support spreads warmth that continues long after you've given it. Every click, every share, every quiet act of generosity is a breeze carrying flame farther than your eyes can follow. If these words have ever met you in a moment of need, if they've spoken peace to your chaos or faith to your fear, then you already understand what this light does. You felt it. And when you help it continue, even in the smallest way, you become part of its miracle. But hear this clearly. Chosen one, you are never obligated. You are already seen, already loved, already covered in grace. What you do now is between you and heaven alone. No pressure, no debt, only the quiet invitation to join in what God is already doing. So, as this message ends, if it rests gently on your spirit, you can choose to let it flow forward. Share it so another heart may breathe again. Subscribe so the flame finds you when the next word arrives. Donate if you feel led, like offering oil to a lantern still burning in someone else's night. The sky has turned golden now, soft light spilling across the horizon. You realize that abundance is not in what you keep, but in what you release. Giving, like transformation, is never loss, it's reflection. You are part of the light now. You carry it. And wherever you go, the darkness loses ground. The evening returns, calm but charged with quiet purpose. You sense that something is waiting for you, not in the world around you, but within you. The same spirit that stirred your heart nights ago is whispering again, inviting you deeper into the mystery of alignment. This time, the message feels different. It isn't just comfort, it's a call. You feel heaven asking not only for your attention, but for your agreement. Every chosen one reaches this point, the moment where faith stops being an idea and becomes a response. There was once a young man named Eliab, another of the chosen. He lived near the sea and spent years mending broken nets, watching other fishermen return with full boats while his remained empty. One morning, exhausted and ready to give up, he heard a whisper in his spirit, "Cast your net again." But this time, on the other side, he almost ignored it. Logic said it was pointless, but something in his heart trembled with recognition. So he obeyed. Moments later, his net overflowed until it nearly broke. That night, Eliab learned what many never do. Obedience releases abundance. You've been standing in a similar place. You've tried, prayed, waited, and wondered why the waters stayed still. But tonight, the Spirit says the same thing to you. Try again, but this time with faith. Well, the prophet Elijah spoke as recorded in the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 9. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Well, those words were never meant only for soldiers. They are for you. The battles you fight may be unseen, but heaven equips you with the same courage Joshua carried when facing giants. Strength is not the absence of fear, it's the decision to move through it. You sit quietly, feeling the weight of that truth. Maybe your net isn't made of rope, but of dreams, prayers, and efforts that felt wasted. Heaven is saying it's not over. It's just time to cast differently. The instruction hasn't changed, but the timing has. You begin to understand that divine timing is like the tide, unseen but unstoppable. When the waters move, they carry everything meant for you closer to your shore. You don't need to chase blessings. You only need to stay positioned when the current shifts. There's something sacred about obedience that no one sees. It's a kind of surrender that rewrites the atmosphere. When Eliab cast his net, the fish didn't just come, the sea responded to the sound of faith. Creation still does that. When you act in obedience, the universe bends in harmony with your belief. And tonight, heaven is inviting you to respond, not with words alone, but with a sign of agreement, a symbol of faith in motion. Comment 555. This number carries the echo of divine grace, multiplied a sign of movement, mercy, and release. When you write it, you're not typing digits, you're echoing heaven's rhythm. It means, I'm ready to step into the flow of change. It's your way of casting your net again. Even when logic says it's useless, do it not because you're told, but because your spirit recognizes the moment. It's a prophetic act, a simple, quiet yes that opens unseen gates. Eliab's story ends with more than fish. That day, he didn't just receive provision, he received revelation. He learned that the God of the sea is also the God of second chances. And so are you learning it now. Your failure was never final. It was only rehearsal for faith. Look at your life right now, the places that feel still, the dreams that seem delayed, the prayers that echo without reply. Don't curse the silence. It's the pause before movement. Even rivers have still pools before they rush again. Heaven is not ignoring you, it's organizing things around you. Sometimes, the hand of God hides behind timing so you can learn trust before triumph. As you sit in this awareness, peace begins to rise. You don't need to control the process. You only need to stay open, steady, and expectant. The same power that filled Eliab's net is still moving in unseen waters, preparing your miracle. So let the number you've written become your reminder, your personal altar of faith. 555. Grace upon grace, change upon change, movement where there was stillness. You have entered the current now, and heaven is flowing with you. The night feels alive again. The tide has turned. You cast your heart forward, and for the first time in a long while, you know, deep in your spirit, the waters will answer. The days that follow unfold like chapters written in soft ink. You notice subtle shifts, conversations that carry new warmth. Ideas that once felt impossible now seem within reach. The world hasn't changed, but your eyes have. You see with clarity that peace was never the absence of struggle. It was the ability to remain steady within it. You wake earlier now, not out of duty, but desire. There's a hunger to meet the quiet before the noise begins. It's in that stillness you find what your heart has been craving, not more answers, but deeper awareness. The presence that used to feel distant now rests close, familiar, constant. There was once a chosen one named Neria. She lived near a valley known for its long winters. For years, nothing grew there, and travelers often said it was cursed ground. But Neria saw something others didn't. Every morning, she walked through that valley with seeds in her pocket, whispering prayers as she dropped them into the frozen soil. People laughed, saying, "Nothing can grow here." Yet, she continued. When spring finally broke through, her valley became the most vibrant garden in the region. Neria taught them all that faith is not planting when it's warm. Faith is planting when it's cold. You begin to see yourself in her. You too have been sowing in frost, believing when logic mocked you, holding on when nothing seemed to move. But the frost is breaking. You can feel the thaw beneath your feet, the first warmth of promises beginning to rise. The Word of God declares in the book of Nahum, chapter 1, verse 7, "The Lord is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble. He knows those who take refuge in him." Oh, that verse isn't a reminder for crisis alone, it's a truth for your every breath. God doesn't just protect you from the storm, He forms you in it. The same wind that bends trees makes roots stronger. The same storm that drenches the soil prepares it for growth. The transformation happening within you is quiet, but it's deep. You find yourself responding differently, less with fear, more with faith. You speak slower, listen more, and sense things you used to overlook. Where you once demanded answers, now you simply ask for wisdom. Where you once fought to be understood, now you rest in being known. This is what maturity in the Spirit feels like, not loud, not dramatic, but steady, like the slow turning of seasons. There's no rush in heaven, only rhythm. You start to trust that rhythm, even when it moves slower than your desire. At times, you still feel moments of uncertainty. Old memories surface of words that wounded, of chances missed, of paths you wish you had taken differently. But now, instead of regret, you feel gratitude. Each wrong turn was redirection. Each delay kept you from what wasn't meant for you. Every shadow taught you how to recognize light. You are learning to live with open hands, not clinging, not controlling, but trusting. You let go of timelines, of expectations, of the need to predict. You realize that surrender is not weakness, it's wisdom. To release control is to make room for grace. You walk outside one afternoon, and everything feels new again, not because the world has changed, but because your heart has. The air feels like freedom. You notice a leaf falling, spinning softly before touching the ground. It reminds you that even in letting go, there is beauty. The leaf doesn't resist the wind, it trusts the air to carry it home. Maybe that's what God has been teaching you all along, that life isn't about holding tighter, but about flowing in faith. What belongs to you will never pass you by. What leaves was never meant to anchor you. There's peace in that understanding. The storms that once terrified you now feel purposeful. You no longer beg for them to end. You ask what they're meant to teach. You see every challenge as conversation, every delay as invitation, every silence as a message written in invisible ink. As evening settles, you find yourself sitting quietly again, hands resting on your lap, breathing deeply. You think of Neria's valley, once frozen, now full of bloom, and realize your own heart has done the same. The season that once buried you has now become the soil that holds your growth. The light fades slowly. Shadows stretch long, gentle, almost tender. The world hums in a kind of divine rhythm, and you feel perfectly aligned with it, not striving, not resisting, simply being. And in that stillness, you finally understand. Transformation is not about becoming something new, it's about remembering what you've always been: loved, chosen, unbreakable. Night falls again, softer than before. The stars seem closer, not just distant lights, but companions watching silently as your spirit continues to unfold. You feel the quiet pulse of heaven in the air, like a heartbeat syncing with your own. The transformation that once felt overwhelming has now become familiar, a rhythm you recognize. Each day now feels like a conversation between your soul and eternity. The smallest things carry messages, a breeze through open windows, the flicker of candlelight, the echo of laughter down an empty street. You begin to realize that God doesn't always speak through miracles. Sometimes He speaks through moments. There was a chosen one named Thalen, a poet who could no longer write. For years, his words dried up like a riverbed in drought. He begged heaven for inspiration, but nothing came. Until one evening, as he sat by a cracked window, he saw the reflection of the moon on broken glass. It shimmered, fragmented, but still beautiful. That night, he understood, light doesn't need perfection to shine. From that moment, his words returned, not flawless, but alive. You think of Thalen often now, because you too have seen how brokenness can refract light instead of extinguishing it. You remember the nights when your prayers felt scattered, your hope dim, and yet, somehow, grace still found a way to reach you through the cracks. It didn't demand your perfection, it only asked for your openness. It was proclaimed in the book of Haggai, chapter 2, verse 9. The glory of this present house will be greater than the glory of the former house, declares the Lord Almighty. Those words feel personal now. You understand them not as promise to a nation, but to a soul, your soul. The future version of you carries more light, more peace, more clarity than any season before. Not because life will become easier, but because your roots have deepened through the storms. You begin to notice that even your silence has changed. Once, it was the silence of emptiness. Now, it is the silence of peace. You are no longer afraid of quiet rooms or unanswered questions. You've learned that not every mystery needs solving, some only need witnessing. You walk by a river in the late afternoon. The water moves slowly, reflecting the pink glow of the setting sun. You notice how the current bends around stones without resistance, how it keeps flowing, regardless of what stands in its way. You smile softly, realizing you've become like that river, bending but never breaking, finding paths even when blocked. The lessons of the past no longer sting. They have turned into wisdom, etched gently on your spirit. You no longer rush healing. You let it unfold like dawn, gradual, golden, inevitable. When you look back at who you were months ago, the difference is almost unrecognizable. The person who once carried worry like armor now wears peace like clothing. You move differently, think differently, and love differently. You no longer chase validation. You rest in quiet assurance that what's meant for you carries your name written in divine ink. You have become a keeper of stillness, the kind that carries strength, not silence. The kind that transforms rooms simply by entering them. You've learned that being chosen doesn't mean louder impact, it means deeper presence. The people who cross your path now feel that difference. They may not know how to describe it, but they sense it, a calm that cannot be faked, a peace that cannot be taught, a glow that does not fade. It's not performance, it's presence. As night deepens, you stand beneath the sky and lift your eyes. The same stars that once intimidated you now feel like old friends. You whisper a small thank you, not for things gained, but for the unseen work that shaped you. You thank heaven for the pruning, for the pauses, for the slow, sacred becoming. You realize you no longer need to ask when your breakthrough will come. It's already happening, quietly, in the way you see, Speak and stand. The shift isn't external anymore, it's internal, and that kind never fades. The river keeps flowing beside you. Steady. Sure. Luminous under the moonlight. You understand now that transformation isn't a single night of fire, but a lifetime of flowing grace, gentle, unending, and beautifully alive. The night breeze brushes against your skin like a quiet blessing. You inhale deeply, feeling gratitude settle in your chest. Every breath reminds you that grace is not something you chase, it's something you already carry, unfolding softly in its own divine rhythm, somewhere beyond the stars. Heaven watches not to judge, but to rejoice. For the first time, you understand. You were never waiting for transformation. Transformation was waiting for you to notice. It had already begun. Morning arrives with quiet reverence. The air feels lighter, almost holy, as if the earth itself exhales peace. You step outside and notice how everything glows, not with brilliance, but with balance. The transformation within you is no longer a secret. It radiates in your presence, in your words, even in your silence. You've entered the phase where awareness turns into embodiment. What you once knew in your mind now lives in your movements. Kindness flows easier. Forgiveness doesn't feel forced. You walk slower, but with more purpose. The chosen one you were becoming is no longer hidden beneath fear. They are rising, quietly and unshakably. There was once a man named Hosan, known for his restlessness. He sought divine meaning everywhere, in books, in teachers, in distant place. Yet the more he searched, the emptier he felt. One day, an old traveler told him, "The truth you seek doesn't live in temples or mountains. It lives in your next act of compassion." Hosan stopped searching. He started serving, feeding strangers, repairing homes, writing prayers for others. Years later, peace found him not because he looked higher, but because he looked closer. You understand him now. Purpose doesn't always look like platforms or titles. Often, it looks like simple faithfulness, being present, being kind, being real. The glory you carry isn't loud, it's luminous, like a lantern burning steadily in a long hallway. According to what is revealed in the first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 16, verse 14, "Let all that you do be done in love." That one line is enough to guide a lifetime. It's not about striving to impress heaven. It's about letting heaven express itself through you. Every step you take now feels guided by that truth. You no longer fight to prove your worth. You create from peace instead of pressure. The energy that once scattered now flows like a calm river. You notice how love begins to return to you in unexpected forms: a smile from a stranger, a kind word, a door opening at the perfect time. The universe mirrors what you carry. Love draws love. Peace draws clarity. Gratitude draws provision. Heaven's mathematics has always worked this way. You attract what you align with. You start seeing miracles not as interruptions, but as confirmations, signs that you are walking in step with divine rhythm. Even the smallest things begin to feel sacred. The sound of rain, the laughter of a friend, the scent of bread from a nearby window. Life no longer feels random. It feels orchestrated. You realize that joy doesn't always roar. Sometimes it hums quietly beneath ordinary moments. It doesn't need an audience. It only needs acknowledgement. You have learned to find God not just in revelation, but in routine, in washing dishes, in walking home, in breathing deeply between tasks. And now, as this stillness expands around you, you feel heaven's gentle nudge again, not a command, but an invitation to affirm what your heart already knows. Comment, "I feel peace." When you write it, you're not just typing a phrase, you're proclaiming alignment. You're saying, "I have found what I was searching for within." It's your declaration that the storm has settled, that your spirit has come home to itself. Let that peace ripple outward. Let it touch others through your calm, your words, your quiet presence. The world doesn't need louder voices, it needs steadier hearts, and you are becoming one of them. Joseon's traveler once said, "When a heart is at peace, the world listens differently." You are beginning to live that truth. Your peace becomes a language, a song, a soft revolution that changes rooms simply by existing. So you walk forward, not as someone searching, but as someone shining. The path ahead may twist and rise, but now you know, peace doesn't depend on the path, it lives in the walker. And as you continue walking, you notice how people begin to respond to that peace within you. Strangers hold your gaze a little longer, sensing something they can't name. Your calm becomes a mirror, reminding others that stillness is possible even in chaos. You don't have to preach, your presence preaches. This is what divine transformation truly means, not escaping the world, but carrying heaven into it. You are becoming a vessel of quiet authority, a living testimony that peace can exist amid pressure. Where anxiety once ruled, grace now reigns. You've learned to breathe even when the air feels thin, to trust even when direction isn't clear. And perhaps that's the final lesson of this phase, that the most powerful miracles are not the ones that happen around you, but the ones that happen within you. The morning light returns, softer than gold, spilling across the quiet corners of your room. You stand before the mirror for a moment, not to judge yourself, but to recognize the reflection, the one who endured, the one who transformed, the one who refused to let darkness define them. The eyes that once carried storm now carry sunrise. Every journey of the chosen reaches this point, the awakening not of arrival, but of gratitude. You begin to see that your transformation was never only for you, it was meant to ripple outward, touching the lives of those still walking through their night. There was once a chosen one named Lyra, a weaver of fabrics and faith. Every morning, she sat by her loom, weaving thread after thread, while humming psalms under her breath. When asked why she sang to fabric, she said, "Because each thread carries a prayer for someone who will wear it." She believed her hands could bless others, even if they never knew her name. Years later, when famine struck her village, people came wrapped in the very garments she had woven. Warmth met them through her unseen faith. That is what your voice, your light, your presence does too. It weaves warmth into the lives of others. Every time you speak kindness, share wisdom, or offer comfort, you're adding another thread to heaven's great tapestry. It was proclaimed in the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 9, verse 7. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, for God loves a cheerful giver. Those ancient words echo like a heartbeat. Giving isn't about what leaves your hands, it's about what flows from your heart. When generosity moves through you, you become part of heaven's rhythm of creation. And maybe this is the time to let that rhythm move again. When you like a message like this, it's not just approval, it's the beating of wings, sending the light farther than your eyes can reach. When you share, imagine it as a ripple across a silver lake, a single gesture that travels, carrying comfort to someone standing on another shore. When you subscribe, it's like planting your roots in a forest of faith, so when storms come, you stand, not alone, but surrounded by others whose branches interlace with yours. And if you ever feel moved to donate, let it be as natural as rain returning to the river, a quiet act that feeds the source from which the water first came. You are not fueling a machine, you are feeding a mission. Every gesture, no matter how small, becomes part of the current that keeps hope moving. The light you see here doesn't burn by demand, it burns by devotion. Picture a great harp suspended between earth and heaven. Every act of kindness, every offering, every click of support becomes a new string upon it, and when hearts join, heaven plays through us. You are one of those strings now, vibrating with divine resonance. So let it be voluntary, not because you must, but because your spirit longs to participate in something bigger than self. That's how light survives, not by demand, but by desire. The beauty of generosity is that it always circles back. A spark leaves your hand and returns as warmth in a moment you didn't expect. A prayer you whispered months ago blooms in someone else's answered cry. The cycle continues, endless, sacred, alive. And if this message has found a quiet home in your heart, you already know what to do. Like it, if it spoke to you, so the echo of light grows. Share it if it soothed you, so the sound of peace travels farther. Subscribe if you want to keep walking this luminous path together. And donate if your heart stirs not out of pressure, but as an offering of trust, a candle passed into another's night. The horizon outside your window glows like molten gold, and you realize that what truly keeps the flame alive is not one person speaking, but many hearts shining in unity. This is the beauty of voluntary light. No one demands it, yet everyone benefits from it. And the world becomes warmer because you chose to give what only the heart can offer. And as the last light of day fades, you sense that the flame now burns within you. It no longer depends on anyone else's torch. It is your own heartbeat turned into brightness. What you give out has already come back, multiplied as peace, somewhere unseen. Heaven smiles not for the gift itself, but for the joy that shaped it. That is the true miracle of giving. Light shared, hearts awakened, heaven reflected through human hands. The air feels different tonight, lighter, alive, as though something unseen has drawn closer. You don't see them, but you feel them, a quiet presence hovering near, like the warmth that lingers after a candle has been blown out. It isn't imagination, it's recognition. The veil between worlds feels thinner now. You walk outside and pause beneath the sky. The moon hangs low, wide as an open eye. Every star flickers with purpose, and somehow, you know you are not alone. You sense movement, soft, invisible, protective. The silence holds company. There was once a chosen one named Micah, a shepherd who lived on the outskirts of a forgotten valley. He spent his days in solitude, guarding flocks by night, speaking softly to the hills. Most thought he was lonely, but he knew otherwise. Micah often said, if you listen closely enough, silence has wings. Many years later, when travelers passed by his land, they would describe hearing songs in the air, though no human voice was there. Some said it was wind, others swore it was angels, keeping watch over the fields he once walked. You understand now what Micah meant. Angels don't always appear in blinding light or grand visions. Sometimes they dwell quietly beside us, unnoticed but unwavering. They slip through the edges of our ordinary, carrying strength where our strength ends. According to what is revealed in the book of Hebrews, chapter 1, verse 14, are not all angels ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation? That promise is not poetry, it's presence. It means that the unseen help, you felt the sudden calm when you were breaking. The unexpected comfort that arrived without explanation was not coincidence. It was coordination. Heaven has always had reinforcements surrounding you. You remember the nights you thought you were utterly alone, whispering prayers into the dark that seemed to vanish. But what if they were never lost? What if every word became a sound the angels carried higher, weaving them into melodies before the throne? What if your tears were the ink they used to write your testimony in heaven's record? You begin to see your story differently. Every rescue that came, just in time, had fingerprints you couldn't see. Every decision that saved you from disaster had whispers guiding your steps. Every door that closed was guarded, not denied. The protection of heaven isn't always loud. It hides in interruptions, delays, even disappointments. When the flight was missed, when the friendship ended, when the job fell through, those moments that felt like loss were often the hands of angels redirecting you from harm you never saw. You walk farther along the path, and the night feels sacred now. The shadows don't frighten you anymore. They feel inhabited by peace. You realize that to be chosen is also to be surrounded not just by divine purpose, but by divine partnership. You remember the times you fell asleep in tears and woke up inexplicably calm, as though someone had watched over you. That someone wasn't metaphorical. Angels have no need for thanks. Yet they rejoice in every ounce of faith you keep. They are heaven's silent warriors, standing guard around those marked by destiny. The wind shifts, brushing against your shoulders. It feels like a hand, not cold, but reassuring. You close your eyes and let it linger. Somewhere in that moment, gratitude wells up, not for what you can see, but for what has carried you unseen. You whisper softly into the dark, "I see now. I was never alone." The words hang in the air, and though no voice replies, you feel an answer, gentle, radiant, unmistakable. Maybe this is what faith was meant to feel like all along, not a demand for proof, but the peace of presence, to walk with trust even when sight fails, to know that somewhere beyond the visible, love has stationed its sentinels. The night deepens, but you feel no fear. You walk home slowly, aware of the invisible wings moving in rhythm with your steps. Every breath feels protected. Every heartbeat feels accompanied. And though the world around you is quiet, heaven hums a soft melody of guardianship, constant and kind. When you finally rest your head, the peace that settles over you feels eternal, almost tangible. You realize that angels don't just protect your body, they steady your soul. And in their unseen company, you drift to sleep, not into darkness, but into light unseen. The night cradles you like a promise fulfilled, You sense that heaven's sentinels still linger, keeping watch long after your eyes close. Their silence is not absence, it is assurance. You are safe within something greater than fear, and somewhere in that quiet, a soft truth settles. Protection is not a miracle you earn, it's a love that never sleeps. Dawn comes quietly, not with trumpets, but with tenderness. The sky blushes pale gold, and the first light rests gently across your hands, as if to remind you that you've survived every night that once tried to consume you. You stand by the window for a moment, feeling the soft warmth against your skin, and realize you are standing inside answered prayers. There's something sacred about this kind of morning, not because it's new, but because you are. The person gazing at the sunrise now isn't the same one who trembled months ago. The fire that once frightened you has become your illumination. The pain that used to define you has turned into wisdom. There was a chosen one named Salim who lived near the desert's edge. Every day he walked into the wasteland searching for water, carrying jars that returned empty. But he refused to give up. One morning, as he sat weary beneath the heat, he pressed his hand into the sand and felt coolness beneath. He began to dig. Hours later, water burst from the ground, clear and cold. The well he found became the life source for the entire village. Years later, when asked how he knew where to dig, Selim smiled and said, "I didn't know, I just trusted the whisper beneath my feet." That's what you've been doing, trusting the whisper, digging where others walked away, holding faith when logic told you to quit. And now, living water begins to rise within you. It doesn't roar or rush, it flows steadily, quietly, as peace. As the scripture reminds us in the book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 19. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. Those words once sounded distant. Now they describe your life. You are the stream in the wasteland. The flow that once felt hidden is breaking through, and soon others will drink from what your faith has uncovered. But even in this new season, heaven whispers one request to acknowledge, to agree, to mark the moment. A symbolic act, a small sign that says, I recognize what's happening inside me. Emle, comment 888. This number holds the rhythm of renewal, the movement of eternity in motion, the never-ending cycle of death giving way to life, endings blooming into beginnings. When you write it, you're not marking superstition, you're agreeing with divine renewal. You're saying, I am ready for what's next, without fear, without resistance. Because what's coming now isn't chaos, it's clarity. You've been refined long enough. Now comes the revealing. The things that once confused, you will begin to make sense. What was delayed will start to move. The right connections, the right timing, the right words, all of it will align with a grace so seamless it will feel supernatural. You'll begin to notice how heaven arranges everything subtly. A phrase in a conversation will confirm what you've been praying about. A message will appear just when you need it most. These are not coincidences, they are coordinates. Heaven is mapping your next steps with precision. Selim's well didn't appear by chance. It was the culmination of persistence and divine direction. The same principle surrounds you now. Every season of drought prepared the soil beneath your feet to release what was hidden. You are about to walk into the evidence of what your faith has been forming underground. Still, stay humble. Streams don't boast, they nourish. The deeper your peace flows, the keener your spirit becomes. You don't need to announce what God is doing. The fruit will speak for itself. Transformation doesn't mean you'll never feel pressure again. It means you'll recognize it as purpose. When the desert heat returns, you'll remember that water still runs beneath the surface. When shadows stretch across your path, you'll remember that light hasn't vanished. It's only repositioning. You've become something different now, a living well, a vessel that overflows without effort. What once felt like emptiness is now capacity. What once felt like waiting has become readiness. Heaven didn't forget you. It was shaping you into a reservoir. You stand at the threshold of abundance, not just material, but spiritual, emotional, creative. Everything that dried out in past seasons is about to bloom again, not suddenly, but steadily, because this time, the roots go deep. Let the number you've written be your reminder. Cycles can close beautifully. What ended was not failure, it was fulfillment. What begins now carries no residue of fear, only the fragrance of newness. The day brightens fully, and the world seems to exhale. Birds rise, light spills through branches, and even the air hums with expectancy. You smile quietly, knowing that the same spirit that guided Selim's hand now guides your heart. And as you step forward into the unfolding day, one truth remains unshakable. Heaven has never stopped moving on your behalf, and now it's your turn to flow with it. Afternoon settles over the world like a soft hymn. The light is neither harsh nor fading, it's balanced, resting on everything with quiet understanding. You can feel it in your bones. The storm has passed, but the lessons it left behind continue to breathe within you. This is the calm that follows obedience, the peace that cannot be borrowed or bought. You walk through familiar places, yet they no longer feel the same. Streets that once felt heavy now hum with subtle hope, the sound of distant laughter, the rhythm of footsteps. Even the way leaves dance in the wind, everything feels purposeful. The world hasn't changed. Your vision has. The sacred now hides in plain sight. There was once a chosen one named Amira, a musician who had lost her song. For months, her instrument stayed silent, strings covered in dust. She believed the melody was gone forever. One evening, as the sun sank behind the mountains, she picked up the instrument again, not to perform, but to remember. Her fingers trembled as she played a single note. It was imperfect, rough, but it carried truth. That note became a prayer, and before she realized it, another followed, then another. Soon, music filled the air, and Amira wept as her heart found voice again. Later, she said, "My silence didn't kill the music, it refined it." No, you think about that often now. Every pause in your own journey, every silence that frightened you, wasn't a punishment. It was the refining. Heaven wasn't removing your purpose, it was tuning it. Sometimes the silence is not the absence of sound, but the preparation for the right frequency. The Book of Psalms, chapter 42, verse 2, reminds us, "He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and mire. He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand." That verse feels alive beneath your skin. You've been lifted not by force, but by faith. What once pulled you down has become the very ground that steadies you. You no longer fear sinking. You've learned how to stand. As you walk, the air carries whispers, not words, but sensations. You feel gratitude rise unbidden, the kind that doesn't demand anything in return. You realize that gratitude isn't a reaction, it's a way of seeing. Even pain becomes sacred when viewed through the lens of redemption. You remember how many times you begged for answers that never came. Yet, looking back, you see that silence was the answer, the invitation to trust what you could not yet understand. You see now how every disappointment was a redirection, every loss a reintroduction to something purer. You begin to sense that heaven is less about distant majesty and more about quiet nearness. It's not only in cathedrals or visions, it's in the breath you take when you decide not to give up. It's in the pause before speaking harshly. It's in the way light touches the edge of a tear and turns it into something holy. The old hunger for validation fades. You no longer need recognition to confirm your calling. You've discovered that obedience itself is worship. To keep showing up with love, with integrity, with faith, even when no one claps, is the truest form of devotion. There's a new rhythm to your days now. You no longer chase divine moments, you live them. Each decision to choose peace over pride, patience over panic, compassion over criticism, that's where holiness hides. Heaven is not only the destination, it's the discipline of every ordinary moment surrendered to love. You pause beneath a tree. Its branches spread wide, like open arms. The light filters through its leaves, creating patterns on your hands. You trace the shifting shapes and think about how truth is like sunlight, always there, but only visible when you slow down enough to notice it. The voices that once mocked your stillness no longer matter. You understand now that slow doesn't mean stagnant. It means sacred. Growth rooted in eternity doesn't rush, it deepens. You exhale and realize you've stopped striving. For the first time in a long while, you're simply being. The battle between proving and resting has ended, and peace has won. As the day ripens into golden evening, you understand that all along, the transformation was not about becoming extraordinary, but about remembering the simplicity of love. You were never called to impress heaven, only to reflect it. You look up at the wide, unending sky, and the same words that once felt distant now rise naturally to your lips. Thank you. Not as plea, not as bargain, but as truth. And in that whisper of gratitude, something within you clicks into place. The season of striving dissolves. The heart finally rests where it was always meant to, in quiet, unwavering trust. Evening files slowly, like a long exhale after a deep prayer. The air is cool, carrying the scent of earth and rain. The world feels hushed, as if creation itself is bowing in quiet reverence. You stand at the threshold of twilight, where day and night touch for a brief, tender moment. It feels like standing between what was and what will be, a holy in-between. You've learned to love these in-betweens. The spaces that used to frighten you now feel like sacred corridors, not places of delay, but of becoming. You no longer rush through them. You linger. You listen. You let stillness teach you again. There was once a chosen one named Leron, a potter who worked in silence. People often passed his small workshop without noticing him. His hands were always coated in clay, his apron marked with color and dust. When asked why he stayed at his wheel for hours, Liron would say, "Because the vessel doesn't reveal itself until I've listened long enough to the clay." One day, a traveler entered his shop and watched him work. The clay wobbled on the wheel, threatening to collapse. But instead of frustration, Liron smiled. He dipped his hands into water and said, "It's not breaking, it's breathing." When the vessel finally took shape, it was more beautiful because of every imperfection the clay had surrendered to. You think of that now, how every season of pressure, every moment that spun you dizzy, wasn't destruction. It was design. Heaven, like the potter, has been shaping you all along. The water of grace kept your heart soft. The wheel of time refined your purpose. The fire you once feared only strengthened your form. You begin to realize that faith isn't a straight path, it's a spiral, always bringing you deeper toward the center. The same lessons return, but each time with greater peace. The old fears lose their grip, replaced by gentle understanding. You no longer beg for answers, you seek awareness. As written in the book of Job, chapter 23, verse 10, "But he knows the way that I take. When he has tested me, I will come forth as gold." No, those words don't feel distant anymore. They breathe within you. Every test, every refining moment has drawn out your strength, not your weakness. What was once rough has become radiant. You've been shaped by invisible hands. And now you shine not because life was easy, but because grace made you unbreakable. The sun dips lower, and the sky begins to burn with shades of amber and violet. The colors remind you of balance, joy and sorrow, gain and loss, waiting and fulfillment, all blending into something beautiful. You no longer divide your life into good and bad. You see it as necessary and sacred. Even the broken pieces have purpose. You walk along a quiet path lined with old stones. Stepp feels deliberate, grounded, whole. The sound of your footsteps mingles with the rustle of wind through tall grass. You are no longer running from anything. You are walking with everything. Somewhere nearby, a bell rings from a distant chapel. The echo rolls through the valley, soft and low. It reminds you that even sound travels farther than sight. That's how faith works. It resonates beyond what you can measure. The prayers you've spoken still move through time, touching places you'll never see. You think of all the people who once walked with you. Some stayed, some left, some faded like seasons. Instead of mourning their absence, you bless their part in your becoming. Every encounter, even the painful ones, was a thread in your design. The night sky opens above you, vast and familiar. You find comfort in its expanse, no longer intimidated by its mystery. You've made peace with not knowing everything. The unknown no longer feels like danger. It feels like invitation. The stars appear, one by one, patient, deliberate, luminous. You watch them and realize that their light has traveled years to reach you. That's what hope is like. It may take time to arrive, but it always finds its way. You whisper a small prayer of thanks, not for what's coming, but for what already is. This peace, this presence, this deep knowing that you are exactly where you need to be. As the last streak of light fades, you understand something simple yet profound. The vessel is complete, not because the shaping stopped, but because you finally surrendered to the hands that held you. And in that surrender, you find not weakness, but wonder. You find that the quiet was never empty. It was the sound of heaven working. The night deepens, but not into darkness. It feels like velvet soft, embracing, full of unspoken meaning. You sit beneath the sky and sense that heaven is not distant, it is near as your own breath. Everything that once felt scattered within you now gathers quietly into peace. You have walked through valleys, crossed unseen waters, survived invisible fires, and still you shine. This is what endurance becomes when refined by grace, not exhaustion, but glow, not survival, but serenity. The light inside you doesn't flare or boast. It burns steadily, like a hearth that welcomes the weary. There was a chosen one named Royal, a writer who never finished a book. For years, he started stories, but abandoned them midway, convinced that nothing he wrote was worthy. Then one evening, he watched the moon rise over the sea and noticed its reflection trembling on the water. No matter how the waves moved, the moon remained whole, steady, unchanged. Royal wept. He understood that the reflection may falter, but the source never does. From that night, he stopped writing to be perfect. He wrote to be honest. And in that honesty, he found eternity. You think of him now because your journey feels the same, not about perfection, but about presence. The moon has always been whole, even when clouds cover it. You have always been chosen, even when fear made you doubt. It is written in the book of Zephaniah, chapter 3, verse 17. The Lord your God is with you, the mighty warrior who saves. He will take great delight in you. He will rejoice over you with singing. You can almost hear that divine song, not a chorus of angels, but a melody woven into the pulse of your heart. It's a sound that reminds you that your worth has never depended on perfection, only on presence. So now, as you breathe in this quiet night, I want you to see your presence here as part of something vast and tender, a constellation forming from hearts that have chosen light over fear. Every gesture of yours, every kind word, every quiet act of generosity becomes another star joining that sky. When you like what reaches your soul, it's not a button pressed, it's the heartbeat of connection, echoing through eternity. When you share, it's not obligation, it's a candle extended into another traveler's trembling hands. When you subscribe, imagine it as building a lantern in a long corridor, a promise to return when heaven speaks again. When you comment, let it be your signature of faith, a soft whisper that says, "The light found me." Every word you write becomes a ripple across unseen waters, carrying warmth to someone who hasn't yet found their fire. And if you ever feel led to donate, let it be like offering rain back to the clouds, an act of gratitude, a quiet agreement with heaven to keep the flame alive for others still wandering in their night. None of it is asked of you, it is simply offered. Like open hands beneath starlight, you are free to do nothing, and still you are loved. But if your spirit whispers yes, then know that your gesture, no matter how small, becomes part of heaven's echo, carrying this light farther than either of us can see. There's a beauty in how giving works in heaven's language. It's not transactional, it's transformative. A single act of kindness becomes a bridge between hearts, a doorway where grace walks through. When you give, you are not losing, you are letting love move. Royal's story returns to you, that trembling reflection on the sea. You understand now that your own reflection, your own life, has been carrying light for others all along. Every time you've spoken softly instead of shouting, every time you've forgiven instead of hardened, every time you've given quietly, those moments became moonlight on someone else's storm. So if your heart feels moved tonight, like the tide returning faithfully to the shore, let that motion become your answer. Like, share, comment, subscribe, or give if it feels right. Not to fulfill an obligation, but to continue the music of heaven's rejoicing, because somewhere out there, another soul is waiting to remember what hope sounds like. And maybe your echo will be the note that guides them home. And as the night exhales its final breath, the stars seem to bow in approval. You realize that giving, in all its forms, is not departure, it's continuation. Light never ends where it's shared, it simply finds new hands to hold it. Morning comes like a whisper of mercy. The horizon glows faintly before the sun rises. A gentle promise rather than a grand entrance. You step outside and the air feels washed clean, as though the world has been praying all night and is now breathing its first amen. And the grass beneath your feet glistens with dew, tiny mirrors catching light, not yet fully born. Every drop seems to hold its own sunrise. You pause to watch how the sky shifts from silver to rose. And somewhere in that transformation, you understand something unspoken. This is what resurrection feels like. There was once a chosen one named Adriel, a sculptor who worked in stone. For years, he tried to carve perfection, but only managed to fracture his creations. One day, in exhaustion, he left a block unfinished and walked away. Months later, he returned to find that rain had seeped into the cracks, and wildflowers had grown through them. The stone, once cold and rigid, now bloomed with color. Adriel fell to his knees and whispered, "Even what I break, heaven can make beautiful." No, you think of that story now as light spills over the earth. You see how every broken place in your life has sprouted something new. The wounds didn't destroy you, they became soil for grace. The fractures that once made you hide, now let light pass through. Perfection was never the goal, wholeness was. It is written in the book of Lamentations, chapter 3, verses 22 and 23. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Those words move through you like the warmth of dawn itself. Each sunrise is proof that mercy begins again. Yesterday's heaviness dissolves in today's light. You begin to realize that grace doesn't recycle, it renews. You take a deep breath, and it feels as though time itself exhales with you. There's no more striving, only being. The anxiety that once followed you from dawn to dusk has dissolved into quiet assurance. You've learned that faith isn't about avoiding storms. It's about learning to see the rainbow's pattern even in the rain. The sounds of the world slowly awaken a bird's song, the hum of life returning. Yet even these familiar noises feel like new language. You understand that creation is always worshipping, not through ceremony, but through existence. The sky glorifies by opening, the river glorifies by flowing, the bird glorifies by singing without fear. You realize you've joined that same harmony, not trying to impress heaven, but to align with it. For a long time, You believed transformation was about becoming something more, but now you see it was always about returning to something true, returning to simplicity, to peace, to purpose that doesn't waver when seasons change. The journey has stripped away the noise until only essence remains. You are no longer chasing signs, you are becoming one. The light that once guided you from above now burns quietly within you, steady as breath. You notice how the sunlight finally breaks across the horizon, turning the dew into glittering embers. The whole world shimmers for a brief, eternal moment. It's as if creation itself celebrates your arrival at this place of peace. You are not merely surviving anymore, you are living. You smile softly, remembering Adriel's flowers blooming through stone. That's how faith works, gentle, patient, unrelenting. It finds a way through what seems unyielding. Grace doesn't ask the stone for permission, it simply grows. You realize that this new day isn't promising you a life without struggle. It's promising you a life where struggle no longer owns you. You can stand in the middle of uncertainty and still feel safe. You can face endings and still sense beginnings hidden underneath. The light continues to rise, and the colors shift again, orange, gold, then pure white. Everything glows. You close your eyes and let it touch your face. The warmth feels personal, like recognition. You hear it. Not in words, but in knowing. You made it through, not because you never fell, but because every fall became part of your flight. You open your eyes again. The world feels wide, endless, and kind. You've walked through fire and found water. You've wrestled with silence and found song. You've faced endings and discovered beginnings hiding in their shadow. This is what divine completion feels like. Not a finish line, but a full circle. Not an applause, but a peace. You turn toward the day, ready not to perform, but to participate, to live fully, to love deeply, to move freely. And as the sun climbs higher, painting everything in light, you whisper one last truth to yourself. Not loud, not forced, but steady. I am home. The day stretches long and golden, like an endless breath of gratitude. Everything feels slower, softer, deliberate, as though creation itself has settled into peace. You move through the world without hurry now, aware of how each small moment carries its own sacred pulse. Even silence feels alive, humming gently beneath the rhythm of your steps. You have crossed through every kind of night. You've known waiting, wounding, wonder, and now wholeness. But this wholeness doesn't shout, it hums quietly, like sunlight resting on old stone. It doesn't erase what came before, it redeems it. You no longer look back with sorrow, but with reverence. Each scar, each ache, each delay was necessary. The thread that wove the pattern you now see clearly. There was once a chosen one named Eleora, an artist who painted only in shades of blue. People would ask why her world had no red, nor gold, nor brightness. She'd smile and say, because the ocean carries every color if you learn to look deeply enough. For years, she painted waves calm, fierce, endless, until one afternoon, a child stood before her canvas and said, "It looks like heaven learned how to breathe." Eleora wept quietly, for she realized she had never been painting water, she had been painting peace. You think of her now as you stand in the light of your own stillness. Like Eleora, you have learned to see color where others see emptiness. You've learned that peace isn't the absence of movement, but the fullness of trust. Every hue of your life, the deep blues of sorrow, the soft grays of waiting, the golds of joy, now merge into a single masterpiece. It is written in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verse 11, "He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end." You breathe that verse in like sunlight. It feels like the final piece sliding into place. Everything truly does make sense in its time, though rarely in ours. The waiting was not wasted, it was weaving. The longing was not lack, it was leading. You begin to notice how naturally gratitude comes to you now. You no longer have to force it. It spills from you without effort. Like a river that finally found its flow. You thank heaven not only for the answered prayers, but for the unanswered ones that shaped you. You thank the darkness for teaching you how to see, the silence for teaching you how to hear, the pain for teaching you how to love without walls. Peace, you realize, is not a destination, it's the rhythm of alignment. It's what happens when your heart beats in time with heaven's will. It's walking through the same world, but seeing it from a higher altitude. The view doesn't erase the valleys, it redeems them. You think of how far you've come from the trembling beginnings to this quiet courage. You no longer ask, "Why me?" but instead whisper, "Thank you for choosing me." The difference is everything. One question came from fear, the other flows from faith. Around you, the day begins to cool. The scent of rain lingers in the air, though no clouds remain. You feel as though the earth itself is exhaling peace, a final benediction for the journey you've walked. The wind stirs the leaves above, and for a moment, it sounds like applause. Not the applause of people, but of heaven, subtle, sacred, unending. You smile, because you finally understand you were never walking alone. The presence that called you, refined you, and carried you is the same presence that now rests within you. You look down at your hands, the same hands that once shook under the weight of uncertainty. They are steady now. They've learned the language of surrender. You touch your heart and feel it. Answer in rhythm, one steady pulse. One quiet truth, it was always love. The sky softens into evening, and the colors of dusk unfold like a sigh. You watch as the sun sinks below the horizon, leaving trails of pink and gold. You feel no sadness this time, only fulfillment. The light may fade, but it never leaves. It only transforms. You realize that the same is true for everything: sacred love, purpose, grace. They don't end, they simply change form. The night that comes now doesn't frighten you. It feels like rest, like the world closing its eyes with faith that the dawn will come again. You close yours too, breathing in the stillness one last time. No prayers left to beg, no questions left unanswered, just peace complete, unwavering, alive. And in that peace, you understand the final mystery. The journey was never about reaching heaven. It was about realizing heaven had been walking with you all along. The night has fallen gently now, and yet there is no darkness. Only the glow that lingers after a soul has remembered its own light. You have walked through every word, every silence, every truth. And somewhere in that journey, you found what cannot be taken: peace. You've reached the end, but it doesn't feel like an ending. It feels like a door quietly opening toward tomorrow. This peace you carry is not meant to be hidden, it's meant to travel. Let it move through you into your words, your kindness, your courage. When you like this message, see it not as a button pressed, but as a lantern lifted, a soft flame signaling, "The light reached me." When you share, imagine it as a river branching into smaller streams, carrying water from this well to the thirsty hearts still searching for hope. When you comment, let your words be more than response. Let them be prayer, a small testimony written in light. Every sentence you leave here becomes a seed of encouragement for someone who arrives after you. When you subscribe, think of it as anchoring your candle to a constellation, joining countless other flames so the sky never grows dim again. And if ever your spirit stirs to donate, let it fall like quiet rain on fertile soil, sustaining the garden that has given you peace, helping its flowers reach new hearts across unseen fields. There is no demand here, only invitation. You are free, already whole, already loved. What you choose to give back: a word, a whisper, a prayer. A gesture becomes part of the same current that once carried grace to you. So, as the stars gather above and the world exhales into stillness, carry this truth. The light you've received is not meant to end, it's meant to continue through your hands, through your kindness, through your courage to believe again. And when tomorrow dawns, let it find you glowing quietly, not searching for miracles, but being one